Hello and welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Today we talk national and social security. Government laying the foundation for citizen security and providing the tools to empower the youth. Plus, taking steps to prevent a fire at home. All this and more within the half hour.
We remain resilient in our fight against known and unknown threats to our country. We are never daunted.
We are committed to continuously deliver effective and efficient service when we save lives and protect property.
And we continue to reassure with courtesy, integrity, and respect for the rights of all.
We are building
forward
together.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your JIS News for Thursday, June 10, 2021. New applications for government's SET and Best Cash Grant initiatives will close on June 13 this year. The supporting employees with transfer of cash and the business employee support and transfer of cash programs were extended for the April to June quarter with a budgetary allocation of $3 billion. In a statement to Parliament on Tuesday, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says there were approximately 40,000 existing SET cash beneficiaries and 15,000 for Best Cash.
All existing applicants who were already in receipt of payments under the SET and Best Cash programs will not need to reapply for the period April to June as long as they're not showing up on a payroll. Right? Once they are in the system, they will automatically qualify for the $18,000 monthly payment as long as they're ruled eligible and in keeping with the originally defined criteria.
The SET Cash Grant provides unemployment support for persons who earned at or below the $1.5 million income tax threshold and have been unemployed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, the Best Cash Grant supports the retention of employees in the tourism sector. 10 vulnerable women will soon receive grants to start or build their businesses and achieve independence. The news was revealed by Minister of Gender Olivia Grange during her sectoral presentation in Parliament this week.
I thank UN Women and the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce for their partnership in this important intervention. I look forward to their continued support as we enable other women to achieve their independence. No woman, Madam Speaker, should have to be totally dependent on any man.
She says the funds will be provided through the ministry's Women's Entrepreneurship Support Project. In the meantime, amendments to the Domestic Violence Act are to be brought to the House of Representatives before the end of June. Gender Minister Olivia Grange gave that commitment during her contribution to the 2021-2022 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
We are serious about ending domestic violence. The Chief Parliamentary Council is preparing the amendments, which I expect to bring to this House before the end of this month.
She says the amendments will include a new definition of domestic violence as not only physical, but also psychological, emotional, and sexual.
The effect of this important update will mean that for the first time, men or women who control their partners through threats or by restricting their personal or financial freedom could face sanctions in the same way as those who are physically violent towards them.
Minister Grange says in the revised law, the threshold to be met in obtaining protection orders from the court will also be widened to give greater protection to those who need the orders to keep abusers away. Additionally, the penalty for breach of a protection order will be increased from $10,000 to $1 million. In other news, Education Minister Favour Williams says the necessary plans are in place for this year's sitting of CAPE and CSEC, which will commence on June 28.
The Overseas Examination Council, OEC, is the agency with the remit to ensure the smooth preparation for and the administration of the CXC exams, as well as the return of exam scripts for marking. They have reported that the centers have been finalized, presiding examiners have been engaged, trained, and deployment schedules shared with them ahead of the start of the exam.
The minister was addressing Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House. She says schools, through the exam coordinators, continue to liaise with the OEC to ensure on-the-ground readiness and the pickup and return of exam scripts in a timely manner. CSEC and CAPE will be administered in their original format, that is, Papers 1 and 2 and 100% moderation of school-based assessments, SBAs. All SBAs are to be submitted by June 30, 2021. The final assessments are slated for July 31, and the results will be released between the last week of September and the first week of October. In the meantime, the Education Minister is reporting that the Grade 6 Ability Test component of the Primary Exit Profile PEP was successfully administered on May 26.
All the scripts are now being checked and graded. The release date and the weighting of the scores are to be determined. As soon as we have that information, we will make it available.
Minister Williams says preliminary reports indicate that approximately 33,000 students were present for the assessment. She adds that one student was reported to be infected with COVID-19 and preparations were made for the individual to sit the exam safely. Staff was also deployed to support another student who was in hospital to complete the assignment. Students will be placed in high schools using their May 26 ability test scores combined with the results of the Grade 4 performance task in language arts and mathematics, which they sat in 2019. And finally, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, has conducted an assessment of the island's shelters as the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season gets underway. Acting Director General of ODPEM, Richard Thompson, says there are 867 shelters island-wide and 90% of them have been assessed. He says the shelter preparation activities got underway last year.
In preparing for the 2021 hurricane season, ODPEM conducted a series of shelter management training across the island, where our shelter managers were re-engaged in shelter management material, which include our COVID-19 shelter guidelines. Training and capacity building took place in 2020, and we will continue to add on this with the additional community volunteers being trained and sensitized.
Mr. Thompson made the statements at the recent launch of the National Hurricane Preparedness Campaign. He revealed that all shelters are equipped with isolation areas to attend to persons who are COVID-19 positive.
They should notify the shelter staff immediately if they are feeling any kind of illness or COVID-related symptoms.
The ODPEM website has been revamped to facilitate easier access to information, in particular, up-to-date data on the latest shelter listings. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
Hurricanes can strike at any time. In the event of one, be prepared to act quickly. If a hurricane watch or warning has been issued, review your home disaster response plan. Map out likely routes to evacuate if your home is at risk and confirm with relatives or friends you plan to stay with. Also, confirm the location of the nearest shelter. Check your emergency supplies and restock if necessary. Remember, disasters do happen, so be prepared.
Up next, government's provision of laptops and tablets to students under the Serve Jamaica Digital Device Program.
Laptops, tablets, and smartphones are a few of the devices being used by students since they transitioned to online learning from the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. This has prompted the government to accelerate its Tablets in School drive. The Ministry of Education has projected that by the end of the 2021 school year, approximately 122,000 devices will be distributed. The most recent vehicle through which these tools are getting to students is the Serve Jamaica Digital Device Program. $329 million is allocated to purchase digital devices for needy students under this program. These are individuals who have not benefited from any of the government's previous initiatives.
The government is aware of coverage gaps and hence the strategy of employing a variety of complementary distribution mechanisms to reach the target population with appropriate safeguards to prevent waste and duplication.
Members of Parliament and councillors are to identify 100 students from each of the 63 constituencies.
Once the devices have been procured by eLearning Jamaica Limited, the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service will make payment to the supplier directly by instruction from the Accountant General's Department.
The program is a collaboration among several government ministries, namely Finance, Education, Science and Technology, and Local Government. The partnership also includes eLearning Jamaica, members of Parliament, and councillors in the municipal corporations island-wide. MPs will be required to fill out a designated form with beneficiaries' information and submit this to the Constituency Development Fund, CDF. The same is required for councillors, but this process will be managed by the Ministry of Local Government. Meanwhile, the CDF will facilitate the required administrative procedures in constituencies. That includes providing the standard form to MPs, which should include the names of students, their school, grade and registration or school ID number, as well as instructions regarding deployment and collection of the devices.
The CDF will provide the data on intended beneficiaries submitted by members of Parliament to the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education will in turn check the list of intended beneficiaries submitted by the CDF against the database of beneficiaries under the Ministry's various other digital device programs to avoid duplication.
The Education Ministry will then approve the list of beneficiaries and submit this to eLearning Jamaica.
eLearning will procure the device, and they have already started that process. They'll deliver the devices to members of Parliament with the same list that the Member of Parliament provided, which has all the beneficiaries. It has those approved by the Ministry of Education, along with a space for the parent or guardian to sign indicating receipt of the digital device.
Following the distribution, MPs and councillors are required to return the signed forms as evidence that the approved beneficiary has received the device. The Finance Minister says procurement has begun and the learning tools will be available in August for the new school period. It's important to note though that the Serve Jamaica Digital Device Program does not replace existing initiatives by the Ministry of Education.
It cannot replace it. This is a smaller program in size. It merely complements and supplements the larger central government initiative.
The Serve Jamaica Digital Device Program, a subset of the $60 billion social and economic recovery and vaccination program for Jamaica, helping to lay the foundation for Jamaica's recovery from the learning loss caused by the coronavirus pandemic.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60 and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
The Ministry of National Security has been strengthening the use of technology across agencies to increase efficiency. The Firearm Licensing Authority is one of the beneficiaries.
The FLA, like all other departments in the ministry, are going through a process of modernization to make them fully equipped with the requisite technology and structures to manage security apparatus in the 21st century. So in fact, they have acquired some bullet tracks machine, to track both the casing and the warhead necessary. More critically, they have acquired a laser engraving machine, which means from now on, every licensed firearm in Jamaica will have a ID installed by laser, which means wherever it is found, we can know who was the original owner, who brought it in, and that it is in fact a licensed firearm in Jamaica. So the laser ID is a critical part of the FLA's tools to manage the firearm industry in Jamaica.
We have also acquired data concentrators to improve the database and the network, the processing time for all our systems. That has vastly assisted us in terms of the timeline in which we are able to process from the application to the testing of firearms. And it must be noted that all ballistic testing of firearms are uploaded immediately to the forensic unit. It's a joint venture program between the Ministry of National Security and the Inter-American Development Bank. The FLA was allocated $400,000 in terms of to improve the infrastructure.
It's critical that the authority is well resourced. And by resource, we're looking at the human resource, the human capacity. And you can see where they're actually doing tremendous work in ensure that we have the requisite skill set in the authority to take on the tasks that is actually required to satisfy its mandate. Also important in this regard is for the authority to best leverage technology, because that is going to make a vast difference. The more you can actually move away from much of the human element to actually limit opportunities for possible corruption and so on and enhance efficiency, that is what the technology will actually do.
So it's important that the Firearms Licensing Authority have a strong and robust system of accounting for the licensed firearms in the country.
We currently receive an average of 3,000 firearms applications per month. And once the application comes in, we have a turnaround time of between 6 months to a year to complete the process, which takes it through the application, the interview. We have improved our processes in terms of the investigation. We have automated the process. So we have now online tracking. So persons who drop off their application are immediately informed of their unique ID number to track the application online, and the system also sends an email to the applicant each time there's an update on your application. An email is received and you can go online to track the processes. So there's no need to call the FLA or to find anyone to assist you. You go online and the application process from the start to the finish is done online. And so we continue to improve the processes and the system to ensure that as fast as possible, applicants are told whether they are denied, deferred, or approved for a license.
FLA is moving in the right direction to create the kind of modern face that we require for the entire security system in Jamaica.
To properly carry out a hand rub, apply a palmful of the product in your cupped hand, covering all surfaces. Rub your hands palm to palm. Rub your right palm over the back of your left hand with interlaced fingers and vice versa. Rub your hands palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked. Rotationally rub backwards and forwards the clasped fingers of your right hand in your left palm and vice versa. Once your hands are dry, they are now safe.
It's time for some fire safety tips from the Jamaica Fire Brigade.
Fire! Fire! My bed, my clothes.
Same script, different day. What's worse, sometimes a human being, even a child, dies in these unfortunate situations. The loss of lives and valuables as a result of fires is impacting those who remain behind. The mental effort to get up from the ashes. Taxpayers too are being burnt as more dollars are being shelled out for fire emergency operations. Homeowners must implement fire safety plans.
It's important for us to fireproof our homes because we have our families and we normally have strict guidelines as to how you operate within the home, how you store your chemicals as it relates to your kitchen, how you manage your heat sources, how you handle your plugs. So the safety measures that you take as it relates to the protection of your children.
Here are a few situations you must avoid to prevent losing your home to fire. Finally home from a tired day at work. The first thing many people do is get something to eat. Now, this is when a fire safety sin is usually committed, having a cigarette while tired or the stove is left on. What else at home are you not doing safely? Like this, using a computer or mobile phone on the bed. So they should not be used on flammable surfaces such as beds or sofas.
Leaving your cell phones on your bed can trigger the ignition temperatures of that spread or sheet and can actually cause a flame. So we encourage you not to leave your cell phones unattended. It's an active source of heat, and worse when it is charging. It has caused many house fires based on our statistics.
Between 2010 and so far in 2019, 100 children were burnt to death. One of the main causes of these deadly fires, a child left unattended with burning candles.
Based on investigation from fires, we find that most of the times it's because we leave our children unattended, right? So we leave them with the matches, we leave them with the candles, we leave them with the lighters, and we leave them with maybe a laptop or an iPod, something to keep their attention, but they are fascinated by a flame.
Here are some other factors found by the brigade to be the major causes of fires within the home. Clothes put to dry at the back of the refrigerator. Storing plastics on cooking gas cylinders.
We identify this as a fire hazard because if you notice, it is pretty much close to the source of heat, which would have been the stove itself. All right? So we can have a spark from this. The Jamaica Fire Brigade encourages that cylinders over 30 pounds should be stored outside. So here we have two heat sources, a microwave and a toaster oven. All right? Plus, there is a charger plugged directly between both sources of heat. What we encourage is that there should be sufficient space to allow for air to pass through. In the bathrooms, the heat sources, for example, your blow dryer, you leave those on, running while you do other stuff, while you wash your face, something. But leaving them near your towels and your other materials that can burn, your clothes, that can spark flames.
As for power strips, they should not be overloaded.
So we also encourage that if you're using extension cords, do not run them behind furniture, do not run them under the carpet, because the constant pressure on the cords themselves will cause breakage. Again, if it is near a combustible material, it can cause a fire.
It is crucial that these fire safety measures are adhered to. Every home should have a fire safety plan that is known by each member of the household. Lastly, but very important, keep the numbers of the nearest fire station saved in your telephone contacts.
The general public can make a request for us to come inside the homes, check where you should have a smoke detector, check where an extinguisher should be, because you should have these in your homes as well.
Informing.
Jamaica today confirmed its first imported case of coronavirus.
Educating.
If you follow the recommended procedures, it is highly likely that you will not get the disease.
going beyond to keep you informed and connected.
Welcome to Get the Facts.
Even through the pandemic. Helping you stay safe while we protect ourselves. Dependable. Impactful. Accurate.
This is your JIS News.
Credible. Trustworthy. Every day, everywhere. Serving our customers proudly.
Practice good hygiene by washing your hands frequently using soap and water. Here's how you should do it while conserving water. Turn on the tap to wet your hands, then turn off the pipe. Lather your hands and the tap with soap. Turn on the tap and wash your hands, back, front, and in between fingers. Use some of the water to wash off the tap, then turn it off. Dry your hands with disposable hand towels. If you don't have running water, use a hand rub containing 62% or more alcohol. If hand sanitizers are not available, rubbing alcohol, Dettol, white rum, or household bleach will do the trick. And if all else fails, let hand washing and the handling of potable water be a two-person event. Each person will take turns pouring and washing hands with sitting water. Now is a good time to consider installing a tap on your containers to reduce the risk of water contamination. Faucets can be easily attached to drums, buckets, or 5-gallon water bottles. And to ensure that the outside of the containers are clean when recapping, disinfect it with hand rub containing alcohol that's 62% or more. The 5 R's of water conservation are also necessary to practice. Reduce water wastage by investing in water-saving devices. Reuse water at least twice before discarding. Replace leaking pipes, faucets, and other plumbing equipment. Recycle wastewater and use it for gardening, car washing, or cleaning of public spaces. And reclaim water through rainwater harvesting. We all must play our part to ensure there's water to combat the coronavirus and stave off prolonged drought.
This is where our journey ends, but only for today. Do join us again tomorrow when we'll bring you another informative program. In the meantime, stay connected via our website, gis.gov.jm. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at gis.gov.jm or via tweet at JIS News. You may also find us on all the major social media platforms and through our mobile app that's Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.